I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice. Tumbling down the rabbit hole?
You could say that.
I can see it in your eyes. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. Do you know what I'm talking about? Unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more. Follow me.
So I'm currently reading through the Apocrypha, which is all of the books from the Bible that were banned because they either made God look bad or Jesus less divine. And I'm currently working my way through the book of Adam and Eve. And oh boy, do I get it now. At first I didn't, because this is the part in the story of Adam and Eve right after they get kicked out of the garden. And it goes all the way up until the actual murder that the boy performs. And this is where all the prophecies for Jesus' next coming is coming from. This is where they go, hey, don't worry about your original sin because, you know, the Messiah's coming. And I'm sitting here going, why would they kick that out? Why would they kick that out when, like, it's full of all of these wonderful promises? It was Adam. Adam's the one who got the Adam and Eve Bible kicked out of the Bible. Because it turns out, for 10 days straight, Adam did nothing but whine about getting kicked out of the...
These three books terrified the church. First, in the Apocalypse of Adam, Adam reveals that God is actually the devil, and that human bodies are a trap designed to keep souls enslaved. It also reveals that God flooded the world because humans were becoming too smart. Second, in On the Origin of the World, it declares that the world we live in is actually hell. And do you know who it says is the dark ruler of this hell world? You guessed it, the God of the Bible. It also reveals that Eve is actually a goddess of life, and she was the one who gave life to Adam because the Creator God didn't know how. Third, in the Secret Book of John, Jesus reveals the existence of a higher God known as the One, infinitely more powerful than the God of the Bible. Like Adam, Jesus reveals that the Creator God is evil and is trapping pieces of the One in bodies. The One is the ultimate reality, the source, and this text explains that humans possess a fragment of the One capable of awakening and transcending the material world.
The CIA tried to hide how the world will end. In 1966, a book called The Adam and Eve Story was published and immediately classified. However, in 2013, 57 pages of this book were finally released, which stirred up a conspiracy theory frenzy. This book, written by Dr. Chan Thomas, spoke of a coming pole shift that would cause the apocalypse. Thomas believed that the Earth was on a 12 to 15,000 year cycle where the Earth's magnetic poles suddenly flip, causing massive natural disasters. An event like this would reset civilization to the Stone Age, leaving survivors to start over. And more concerning is that this could be all happening again soon. You see, one of the most interesting claims in this book is that we're actually the sixth civilization to emerge from this cycle of cataclysms. Now, if you look at the evidence, there have been many out-of-place artifacts found over the years, showing pieces of technology that shouldn't even exist and predate the oldest known human civilizations. Consider too the shared global flood myth from dozens of cultures around the world, which could also tie into a story of something like Atlantis. It was stated by Plato that Atlantis was destroyed around 11,000 years ago, which puts us close to that 12,000 year mark. And with magnetic north shown to be on the move, perhaps this pole shift is already in motion. Now, this may be nothing to worry about, but some questions remain. What is in the other 227 pages of this book, and why is it considered dangerous?
Also banned from the Bible that sheds light on what's going on, and it's called the Apocalypse of Adam. The Apocalypse of Adam tells the story of the Garden of Eden from Adam and Eve's point of view, but most importantly for us, it describes the flood. In this banned book, Adam reveals that humans were not actually created by God, but that all of humanity are actually divine eternal beings, and that God is actually an evil entity humanity that imprisoned their souls in bodies on earth to be his slaves and wiped their memories, because if they realized they were divine, they would be able to escape. In the Bible, it says that God destroys the earth with a flood because the people had become wicked and sinful. But the Apocalypse of Adam says that's not the case at all. It was because humanity was becoming too intelligent. They were starting to realize what they were, and they were refusing to worship God, the one who imprisoned them on earth. Also banned from the Bible that sheds light.
This book terrifies the church. The Apocalypse of Adam is a non-canon Gnostic book in which Adam, the first man, tells his son Seth about his past. Adam tells Seth that Adam and Eve were originally divine angels called eons and existed together with the eternal God, also called the Monai. In this state, they were pure, immortal, and part of the Pleroma, a divine realm where there was unity and light. However, Adam and Eve were trapped into mortal bodies by a lesser god named Sakla, who lacked the power and wisdom of the one true God. In his ignorance, Sakla created a flawed version of Adam and Eve, separating them from the original divine nature and trapping them in the imperfect material world. The Adam and Eve created by Sakla recognized him as the God who created them and served him in fear and slavery. But eventually, they were shown their true nature by three very important persons and were awakened. Adam then tells Seth that he must preserve this knowledge and pass it on to others.
Gnostics weren't shy about saying it. They believed the material world was a prison, and the true God, the higher power, wasn't the one who created it. Instead, they saw this world as the work of a flawed creator. Now, think back to the story of the Garden of Eden. Maybe this wasn't just a moral story about disobedience. Maybe it was a way to explain why the world we live in is so broken. The moment Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge, they didn't just disobey, they woke up. They realized they were trapped in a world of suffering. And instead of guiding them to freedom, Yahweh cast them out into an even harsher existence, full of labor, pain, and death. All right, let's talk about Jesus. We've been taught this straightforward narrative. Jesus came to save humanity from sin, to redeem us from the fall, and to offer us eternal life. What if, instead of being the ultimate plan of redemption, Jesus' mission was actually a move to wake us up to the manipulation that had been happening all along? Jesus wasn't just some passive figure preaching love and forgiveness. He was a radical. He called out the religious authorities, questioned the status quo, and preached about a kingdom that wasn't of this world. When you look closely at his teachings, Jesus wasn't just offering a ticket to heaven, he was pointing out that this world, the one dominated by suffering and control, wasn't the real reality. He was trying to show us that we were trapped in a system that was never designed for our benefit. Let's go deeper. In the Gnostic texts, which were considered heretical and banned by the early church, Jesus is portrayed not as the son of a vengeful God trying to punish humanity, but as a messenger from the true God. According to these texts, he wasn't sent here to make us obedient followers of some cosmic overlord, but to free us from the control of the false god, the demiurge. You know, the same one that allegedly created the flawed material world we're stuck in. Jesus kept talking about the truth and how it would set us free. Free from what, exactly? The Gnostics believed that the truth was about our divine nature, how we're not just physical beings trapped in this broken world, but sparks of a higher reality, imprisoned by a false creation. And who was keeping us in that prison? The very forces that humanity has been worshipping for millennia. The Jesus in these texts isn't telling us to blindly follow, he's telling us to wake up to the bigger picture. And guess what? Jesus didn't come preaching about following religious laws or rituals. He was challenging them. He was undermining the idea that salvation could be found through obedience to earthly systems of power, whether religious or political. This isn't the story of a passive Messiah offering salvation if we just believe and behave. This is the story of someone calling for an uprising against the spiritual powers that enslave us. Why was this text banned? Well, you can see how dangerous it would be for the early church. If people started believing that the God they were worshipping was actually an evil imposter, it could have completely dismantled the foundation of Christian belief. But here's the kicker, the ideas in the Apocalypse of Adam and other Gnostic texts didn't just disappear. They've survived, quietly influencing everything from religious thought to modern philosophy. And now, with these ancient texts coming to light, we're getting a glimpse of a belief system that dared to question the very nature of reality itself. Now that we've cracked open the door to Gnosticism and the apocalypse of Adam, let's step through and see what Adam himself has to say. This isn't the Adam you remember from Sunday school, the obedient first man who followed God's commands. In this text, Adam is more like a whistleblower, someone who's seen the truth and is desperate to share it. Adam's story, as told in the Apocalypse of Adam, is nothing short of revolutionary. After the fall, when Adam and Eve were cast out of Eden, Adam didn't just slink away in shame. No, according to this text, he received a revelation, a gnosis, that turned everything he thought he knew upside down. He learned that the God who created the world wasn't the supreme, benevolent being he was made to believe, but rather a deceptive force that sought to keep humanity in spiritual darkness. In the text, Adam says, "Since that day, my thought has been in the great eternal realm and the memory of the one who is my creator. I have reflected on the powers which rule, and I have recognized the one who is above all, the one without whom nothing exists." Here, Adam is telling us that his thoughts have shifted away from the material world, gods, to instill fear and maintain control. Even in the face of such destruction, Adam's knowledge of the light gives him the strength to resist. This isn't just Adam's story, though. The Gnostics believed that anyone who sought gnosis would face similar challenges. The rulers of the material world would do everything in their power to prevent humanity from discovering the truth, including creating elaborate illusions to deceive and terrify. It's a reminder that the path to enlightenment is not easy, and that those who walk it must be prepared to confront not only external forces, but also their own fears and doubts.
Even though Adam and Eve rebelled and ate the fruit, they were still divided, still entombed in a physical body, and still trapped in a world of matter. And they were constantly under spiritual attack from Yaldabaoth. In the Apocalypse of Adam, Adam is retelling this experience to his son Seth. This is important. The Bible tells us that Adam has 3 sons, Cain, Abel, and Seth. The Gnostics believed that Cain and Abel's father wasn't Adam, and that they were born from the root of the evil god Yaldabaoth, and Seth was Adam's only biological son. He symbolizes the reunion of the divine feminine and masculine, which had been planted within their son Seth. This was very important to the Gnostics, and those who believed in this were called Sethians. They believed that most people were killed in the Great Flood, but some of Seth's descendants survive and go on to populate half of the human race. Symbolically, this means that many of us are divine and have the power to escape the material world. Now, back to the Apocalypse of Adam. Adam then goes on to warn Seth about the flood, which hasn't happened yet. In the Bible, God sends down a flood to drown everyone except for Noah and his family, because the rest of the world is sinful and Noah is obedient. Adam tells Seth that this is a lie, and the real reason Yaldabaoth will send the flood is because he is frustrated that Seth's descendants will rebel against him and refuse to submit to him. This is because Seth's descendants know intuitively that there is something very wrong with the world that Yaldabaoth has created. But Yaldabaoth sees that Noah and his family will blindly serve him. So Yaldabaoth sells down a flood to drown the entire world except for Noah and his family and the animals on the ark. But, unbeknown to Yaldabaoth, angelic light beings called Aeons save Seth's descendants by hiding them in a cloud of light. After the flood, Yaldabaoth strikes a deal with Noah. He promises him that if he continues to be his slave and repopulate the earth with more slaves, he will give the earth to Noah and make them powerful rulers. Behold, I have protected you in the ark, along with your wife and your sons and their wives and their animals and the birds of heaven, which you called and released upon the earth. Therefore I will give the earth to you, you and your sons. In kingly fashion you will rule over it, you and your sons, and no seed will come from you of the men who will not stand in my presence in another glory. Noah agrees to this and tells his sons of the deal that he has struck with the devil, God. My sons, listen to my words. Behold, I have divided the earth among you, but serve him in fear and slavery all the days of your life. Let not your seed depart from the face of God the Almighty. Again, has anybody else questioned why we are told to fear God, or is it just me? Then Seth and his descendants are returned to the earth from the clouds, and Yaldabaoth becomes angry because he believes that Noah betrayed him. Noah then tells Yaldabaoth, I have no idea who these kids are or where they came from. Why have you departed from what I told you? You have created another generation so that you might scorn my power. Then Noah will say, I shall testify before your might that the generation of these men did not come from me, nor my sons. The Gnostics believed that the earth is populated by two groups, the Sethians, who refuse to submit to Yaldabaoth and who are working to free themselves and others out of the trap of the material world, and those who have chosen the opposite path, who have made a deal with the devil and who have become slaves to this system. It is symbolic. We have mainstream Christianity, which is focused on sin, repentance, and blind faith, and Gnostic Christianity, which is about knowledge, seeing through the illusion of the material world and becoming like God. The Gnostics were great philosophers, and they liked to look at things metaphorically, and they considered a range of different possibilities when forming their beliefs. They looked at the books that are now included in the Bible and thought, this God is not kind or loving or powerful. They concluded that this must have been the devil. I believe that we need to become more like Adam and Eve. We need to eat from the tree of knowledge, which is of course symbolic for rebelling against the evil rulers of this world, using our minds to free ourselves and being an example to others who desire to do the same.
No. I don't believe it. It's not possible.
I didn't say it would be easy, Neo. I just said it would be the truth.
Stop. Let me out. Let me out. I want out.
Easy, Neo. Easy.
Get this thing. Get away from me. Stay away from me. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
It's gonna pop.
Breathe, Neo. Just breathe.